Hey, let's talk about Chapter 1, Section 1, Forms of Government. Obviously, in the United States, we are used to a form of government where we have a president, and we have the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the Supreme Court, but not everywhere around the world has a form of government like that. So let's talk about a few of the different options. No matter what form of government a country has, there's always a person or people who are in charge of the government. And that person is known as the head of state. So here in this picture on the left, we can see United States President Barack Obama. He's the head of state in the United States. Over here, we see Queen Elizabeth of England. She is the head of state of England. And we see some other heads of state in here. Here is Hugo Chavez. He's the head of state of Venezuela. The person in charge of the government is called head of state. The first form of government we'll talk about is monarchy. And in a monarchy, there is one person who is in charge of the government. There's one person as the head of state. That person is the king or queen, and they have inherited their job. So they might have inherited the job from their mother or father, or perhaps from a sibling who passed away who was king or queen. Pictured here is King Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia, and he is the monarch there. He's the head of state. He's in charge of the government. In what we call an absolute or true monarchy, the monarch makes all the decisions. They're basically judge, jury, and executioner. They make the laws, decide what the laws mean, decide how to enforce the laws in an absolute or true monarchy. They make all the decisions. Most monarchies today are not of that form. Most monarchies today are constitutional monarchies, including England, or what we might call Great Britain. And in a constitutional monarchy, we do have a head of state who is a king or queen, but they don't really have much power in the government. In a constitutional monarchy, such as Great Britain, the members of parliament, pictured here around the outside of this picture, members of parliament are really in charge of running the national government. And the head of state, pictured here, the queen, sort of has a ceremonial role. Like here, this picture is of her opening up a session of parliament, but other than that, she doesn't really have much of a role in the governing of England. Parliament does all the heavy lifting. They make the laws, and the king or queen kind of stays out of the whole thing. The people in Parliament are elected by the population to represent large portions of the population, and that is a stark difference from a true or absolute monarchy where the head of state is just kind of appointed or appoints themselves or inherits their job. A constitutional monarchy is a much more representative form of government. And from that we could discuss democracy, probably the most representative form of government, which is what we are familiar with here in the United States. So here is a picture of the United States Capitol building where Congress meets. In a democracy such as ours, we have a representative style of government. So the head of state, pictured here, is elected by the people. Members of the lawmaking branch, pictured on the outsides here, are elected by the people. They do speak for very large portions of the population, but it's a representative style of government. Theoretically, we elect people who then make decisions for us in our best interests, all in one place, Washington, D.C. So all of these people are elected. Here we have Representative John Boehner. He's from Ohio. He is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. We have the head of state, President Barack Obama, and over here we have Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada, all elected by the people of the nation. The last form of government we could talk about is dictatorship. And in a dictatorship, the head of state gains power through force, threat of force, sometimes violence, and they then make all the decisions at the government level. So here we see some classic examples of dictatorships of the past. Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union / Russia, if you want to think of it now today, and Adolf Hitler of Germany. A more recent example would probably be President Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, who sort of pretends to have a representative form of government, but is essentially a dictator in Venezuela, and he doesn't really like the United States very much. To summarize Chapter 1, Section 1, Here is a graph that appears in the textbook with 4 different forms of government. A monarchy, where the head of state inherits his job through his or her family, and the government is controlled by one person. A constitutional monarchy, where the head of state inherits the job, but real power is held by another part of the government. A democracy, where the head of state is elected by the people, and the government is made up of representatives. And a dictatorship, where the head of state gains power through force and controls the government.